What's up, everybody? Glad to have you with me on this Friday. If you're in the U.S., you probably have heard about this scary little ice storm that we're having. It's got everybody freaked out. So I had to go take some precautions, go around to my properties, and make sure they're winterized. Because, yeah, you don't want your pipes freezing. So that's why I was late. But I wanted to talk about the stuff I normally talk about, a lot of interesting stuff as the month of January closes. I have decided to do what I see a lot of people do, which is do a small account challenge. I don't talk about real money when I talk about the trades that I take and the positions I'm in normally, but I'm going to start an account that is just focused on taking like the key setups, the ones that we talk about during the live stream, the simple things that I use on a regular basis: 50% retracements, volume profile, spikes, and other strategies, rigorously sticking to discipline. And they're going to be ones that people on the live stream and my Discord come up with me, because now I've been doing this long enough. It's very fulfilling to see people come back and say, hey, look, this is at this level that me has taught is a good level to buy or sell. And I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to take it to prove how simple it is to find these setups and have confidence in doing them. And we're going to see where it goes. And I'm excited for it. In addition to that, today's topics, I want to look at of course, the sentiment around crypto, because I think it's kind of interesting. We're kind of in a very neutral place. It's interesting to go through social media, see that sentiment and what's going on there, and update on Monero and Litecoin, the two that I'm probably most interested in. And you'll notice maybe something a little odd. Like, why am I looking at this on my screen? Why is this futures nickel? Like, like the 5 cent coin. Why is this on my screen? Well, that's going to be my focus of research this weekend, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So let's do the normal thing and do a little bit of music to let people filter in if they are joining late, and we'll talk about it. Hang on. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, and thanks for joining me late if you guys were waiting. Like I said, had a little winter storm that I had to go prep my properties for. Got to go drip the faucets, open the cabinets, all that good stuff. Make sure that you don't have any freeze damage. As of course, there's a lot of stuff to talk about today, and you notice how during the intro, I was putting together this little chart right here. You can see we got silver, copper, and gold, and you hear a lot. I mean, you can't escape hearing about gold and silver, but what nobody's really kind of paying attention to is, and this is from December. This is just since December till now, what all the metals, not just the precious ones, but the industrial ones are doing. Now, I am not a metals trader, and part of the reason is because, I mean, it's not really something I follow. And also the margin costs for doing futures on these things are just astronomical. But tens of thousands of dollars just to take a single contract. I'd rather be trading in stocks, honestly. It's too much for me to follow. I do respect one of my favorite traders on, is Peter Brandt. And he follows all these futures instruments. I just prefer doing stocks. But you know what? I don't want to limit myself. And so I have to pay attention to this. Now, why I really think this is interesting is for a more broader picture. And when I say that, I'm talking about, what does this mean macro wise? Now, in some contrarian circles, by the way, as I was looking through these, I found it, of course, interesting that I can find my 50% holding up on nickel. By the way, interesting thing about nickels is nickels here in the US, in case you're not in the US, they're a coin that represents 5 cents. Nickels are made up of 75% copper and 25% nickel, the actual metal. The value of the two together, 75% copper, 25% nickel, is actually over 7.5 cents now. Now, it's illegal to melt them down, which sucks because the first thing I thought when I heard about that was like, I'm going to go buy a bunch of nickels because there was a meme a couple of weeks ago on Twitter about this. I want to buy a bunch of nickels, melt them down, and then sell them for the arbitrage. But you can't do that. It's illegal. It's not worth it. But it speaks to, I don't know what it speaks to. In fact, I'm going to do research this weekend. Now, a lot of people come to us like, oh, it's inflation. It's inflation. But I don't think that's the whole picture. Whether you look at the government release figures or use some more independent figures like the Trueflation Index, which looks at a more varied basket of inflation indicators, it's not high. Like inflation is actually under the 2% threshold now. For many years we lived in this speculation about inflation, and you would have expected all these metals and all these materials being the key thing, to be going up at least as fast as they are now in that actual inflationary environment. And they did, but not at the rate they're going up right now. And so I kind of got a little thesis in my head, not an opinion, but a thesis. What if this expansion in materials is actually, unpopular opinion in some circles, a precursor to economic expansion? In other words, industrial bases beginning to buy up this metals for data centers, power plants. What if we're actually seeing the pricing in of economic expansion? I know fear and uncertainty and doubt is usually all the rage, and that's what gets all the engagement. But what if that's actually the case? Now, that thesis could be incorrect. The null hypothesis is that it's not. Okay, that would be my, and what that could be is it could have to do with tariffs, supply issues. It could be China demand. There's a lot of unknowns, but that's why it needs to be researched. So I'm not taking an opinion that this is all good right now, but I find it interesting as I was looking at this week, and it definitely warrants further study. But let's talk about actual stuff that is making money, because I'm not in any of these things, but I mean, wouldn't you like to be if they're going up? But anyway, so the topic that I wanted to put in the thumbnail is I'm going to start a small account challenge. I noticed that a lot of uh, YouTubers and traders do this kind of thing is to kind of be more relatable. I take positions in different accounts, but I've created an account, uh, put aside some money, $10,000 to start with, for just an account. And what we're going to do, we people on the live stream here, is we're going to look at stuff because over the last few years, as people have regular viewers come in and they notice simple setups like 50% levels, volume profile, and spikes, false breakouts. They come to me and say, "Hey, this stock is doing this," and I'm like, "That's great," and I'll write it down, and I'll very often take it, and it will work because simple does work. And I want to have a way to kind of quantify this, all right, and demonstrate it working in practice. I chose to do this in, uh, Thinkorswim just because I'm more comfortable with the platform. Yeah, okay, it is obfuscating the account, right? We got one in here because this one came up last week. Microsoft actually, and notice we're not doing YOLO stuff. I don't do YOLO stuff. That's not what I do. This is not going to be how do you double 10,000. No, no, no. We're not doubling this $10,000 this year. I'm going to grow it like I would grow my own. And that means taking like reasonable risk allocations. Like in this case, I would have done options, which could have given a little more bang for the buck, but Microsoft has earnings coming up next week. So this little minor positive we have from putting it on this week might go down, but this is what the account's going to look like. And we're going to track it. I'll make a little Excel spreadsheet for it. But yeah, Microsoft came from oh, I've got the futures. Microsoft is a very simple 50% retracement of great company. It's with all the talk about AI going on right now. This is one of those, wow, you mean I can get this on a pullback kind of deal? I mean, especially when you've got, all the other AI plays sitting near to their all-time highs, like NVIDIA, Palantir, which I have positions in. I haven't sold them. They've been a little dicey. I'm watching very closely this spike, this false breakout that they've both done, but I'll take some Microsoft. Yeah. And so that will be the first thing that we put in there. Let me see what I attribute this to. Hang on. Let's see. Viva1 says deflation through debasement potentially betting against the USD. Yeah, I think that seems to be like what goes on in people's minds, I think. But it's so broad. You know what I mean? Like, yes, but it's so broad and it's so fast. Like if it was inflation, you would maybe see it be a little some meaner version to what inflation is, like 5%, 10% on the top end, right? Because the highest CPI that we had, yes, it's government figures, was like 8.3%. That was 4 years ago, 2021, I think. No, it was 2022. Whatever it was, I remember the highest number was 8.3 on the CPI. So let's just assume that is. And if you're looking at, an industrial net, or let's just say platinum, yeah, platinum. See, and you're up, that's a big number. Like April from last year, 200% in just the last month, like since the beginning of the year. We started, yeah, there's January. You're up 29% just in 1 month. There's something going on, and I want to research that a little bit more. So, uh, because it's selling in reserve currencies, maybe it is. Maybe it is. I need to figure that out. I feel like I need to as well. But anyway, like I said, let's just talk about the small account challenge. I mean, Microsoft was the first one. Let me see, who do I attribute this to? Okay, so this was in streamer mode, RKLB on my Discord. Okay. Actually, I need to start using my smart money. There you go. Now you get to be smart money. You get a blue text. So yeah, I'm going to update the Discord and streamline it a little bit too, because I get great ideas from this live stream. People come and they find things like, hey, this is at 50%, and it just works. Now, let me give a little bit of caveat. Okay, let's do a little market analysis right here because I'm starting this account at an all-time high. But again, you really have to. I've been doing this for over a decade professionally, since 2013. I didn't live through 2008. I didn't trade through 2008. I was working a regular job, just watching how finance took over everything. But I've been through a lot of these cycles, and every single day there's FUD. There's the economy is going to crash, the stock market's going to crash, inflation, China, Europe, all these. You just you got to kind of tune out the noise and just assume that most of the time the stocks are going to go up. Not stocks always go up, but most of the time they do. And in every single day since I've been doing this professionally, every day I'll read the news just like you do. Just like you do. This is before, well, Twitter's been around since 2013, but you need to understand that, Twitter, CNBC, everything, every single day, every single one of these, this is a weekly bar. Yeah, every week, every day of every week for this entire chart that you see on the screen, the smartest of experts have been giving the best of reasons why the market is going to crash. And it infrequently does. So I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered doing that. And besides, I'm not going to limit myself to not taking puts to hedge. So what am I going to look for in this account? Like any good trader, I should probably lay out my rules. I'm not going to limit myself to anything. I'm not. I can do anything I want. I can do futures. I'm not going to do futures until I grow it, and I may actually add another 10 grand to it to make it 20 grand if we start getting a lot of stocks in this portfolio. Like I said, right now I put about $1,000 of the 10,000, 10% allocation into Microsoft. I wanted to do options to kind of maybe boost that a little bit because it is a good level, but earnings is coming up in a few days, and we'll see what happens. That might have actually, see, that's going to be Wednesday of next week. Honestly, I probably could have caught some good Vega expansion in there, but I just wanted to start with the allocation to start with. And then when it gets up to, and then what I'm going to do to manage risk, I'm going to do the same way I do anything else. If it doesn't work out, if it comes down to a stop, a set risk amount, I'm going to cut it. And if it comes up to a certain profit target, I'm going to close half and we're going to let it just sit. We're just going to let it sit in there. I'm a big fan. I don't know who this person is that has a dividend account, but he's been doing it for many years. He likes to show a video and just has the dollar sign number, which is great for putting the dollar amount in a thumbnail. I'm not going to do that, but I like what he's doing, where he's building a portfolio over the course of his videos. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to be open to all things that can trade that account, and we're going to focus on live stream based setups. That's going to be 50% retracements, volume profile levels, the cheat code of finding support and resistance, and spikes. The stuff I do every day and talk about in this live stream that just works. And I'm going to show how simple it is. Risk. I need to sit down and, I kind of have just a general idea of the risk I want to take. Obviously 10% allocation. What I did, I probably want to keep it under 5% per trade, but I don't really focus too much on that. So what I did here, my thought process in just putting this on to size for a 10,000, because that lends itself well to 100, if you're doing percentages, was I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't, put myself in too much danger. Okay, so that's about a $22 per share amount. That's 50, which is going to be about less than was 10, 50 divided by 10. Yeah, so like a 0.5%, which is about what I want to do to start out with. Just about a 0.5%. I'm very small with my risk tolerances. I am. But we're going to hold on to this if it goes up. If Microsoft goes up, continues going up at infinity, that's going to be a position. That's how I'm going to size it. So about a 0.5% is what I want to do going into it. That's what I kind of stick with. That way I can take like a $50 or $100 option, and we'll do it that way. So in other words, getting it grounded in real kind of money that anyone can make it approachable. But by the way, this is not financial advice. This is just me putting money where my mouth is and taking people's trades that they come up with, because a lot of people come in with the methods that I talk about that work for me, and I want to show it in practice. I want to show it in practice. So that's what I'm going to do. be doing going forward. So if you have symbols to look at, make sure that you post them in the chat in the latter half, whenever that is, of the live stream. Once I've caught up with chat, I usually go through and post them. And by the way, if you're catching this later, as many people do, hop on Discord and call them out. I love to talk. And one of the reasons I do this live stream is to generate ideas for myself and others. So that's the beginning of it. Just going to show how simple it is. You won't see any other fancy indicators. No, I'm not going to use Ichimoku breakouts for this because that's more of a sentiment finding tool. But if we go here on the weekly of Microsoft, you can also see how this is a valid Ichimoku cloud pullback. One of the reasons I use 50% is because I derive it from Ichimoku. That is where the cloud, the 52-week Senku typically goes flat and creates nice, easy to see support and resistance levels, along with everything else is based on 50%. So yeah, that's why I love Ichimoku. But I take it all away to make things simple, and I just use 50%. But we also know when something trends based on that. So any questions about that? Let me know. Let me see what we got. What's up, everybody? Monero to the moon. No, Dawson, like send to me, Dawson, on hop on the Discord and send to me. I'd love to see your nickel stuff. Is this wait, are you actually the person that hang on? Are you who I'm talking about? That like started talking about this? Because someone on X inspired me not too long ago. Somebody was. I don't, and it could be, but I thought it was a troll account that was actually doing that. Stocking up on physical nickels, what I like about that meme is it speaks to me as a trader investor because you have a floor. In other words, if the whole nickel trade doesn't work out, even though you can't melt them down, even if nickel and copper, the base components don't go up, you have a floor. You have basically, you can always go back to the bank and turn your nickels in for their face value of 5 cents. So if you buy your nickels at 5 cents, which you go to a bank and you do, you have no risk. Like nominally, you have zero risk and you only have upside. I like those kind of trades, obviously, but unfortunately, as Americans, there's obviously major problems. Where are you going to store this many nickels? It's metal, it's heavy, and you can't melt them down. That is actually, unfortunately, illegal. All the fun stuff they make illegal. So that sucks. All right. So some position updates. I was going through a couple of things this week. Oh, where's my notes? Notes. There we go. Let's look at positions. Then we'll look at crypto, and then we will look at possible setups and from you guys. Oh, one more thing I wanted to add in here. One more thing for these potential setups. This is a little nuance. I don't talk about this that much, but also SPY PCS. What is a PCS? PCS is a put credit spread. This is another one of these high probability setups that I've developed over the years that I really trust is going to work. That is a situation where let me see if I can find my sheet here. Been doing some research on getting a truck. I just bought a farm, a little small farm, and I have been doing some truck research. Let me go through here. So yeah, so every day, I go through and I basically fill out a sheet like this from Thinkorswim. I can't paste it in here. Oh well. Let's see if I can bring this up. So let's see. Come on, give me this. Give me this. Okay, there we go. So I use a scan in Thinkorswim that shows me every single instrument, every single stock, excuse me, in the S&P 500 that has done a 30-minute spike. And that's my word for a false breakout. So if we look at this right here, this is from January the 2nd of this year. And if we go and we look at usually in, see, this is A, which is Agilent. Let me bring up my spikes. By the way, I'm going to start changing that to, I'm going to make a huge change, huge announcement. I'm going to change my spike indicator median line color to teal and see if I like that better. So there you go. And what that basically tells me is when price does this, it does a spike down and it comes back up within the same bar to the range, closes above that teal line, which is the Ichimoku Tenkan-sen I derived it from. And that is one of the best signals of reversal. Now, I get a lot of trades from that. Don't take them every day, obviously. There's certain things I look for. I want these to be at a level, at a 50% retracement, or at a volume profile level. It's beautiful. Agilent, not only is it the top letter of the alphabet that appears first, but this was a trade from back in July of last year. Again, because like I said, it was at a 50% of this trend. I got that signal in the morning, and that is a reversal that I want to take. And so that's actually a position that I have. Wish it was in my small account, because this would be something, this would be the ideal thing that would end up in the small account, is one of these setups at a 50% level. And here I took it for the first leg up to about 121, took the profit, make the trade free. That's key. And now I would have this stock sitting in that portfolio. And after 6 months from July, it would be up still 19%. Pretty good return. Like I said, I'm not doing YOLOs here. We're just building out a portfolio and building up an account from a relatively small basis and just making it grow. And we're going to beat the market. That's the goal. Anyway, every day I do this scan and it comes up with any number of spikes. Then what happens is I'll see a crazy day where there will be something close to 50 bullish spikes. Like on that day in particular, January the 2nd, first day of trading day of the year, it was ABBV. It's right here. Let's see. Sometimes it doesn't show up in Thinkers or Trading View. The second, there we go. Let's see. There it is. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, there was and there's a Archer Daniels Midland. Let's just go to BA for Boeing. Boeing did it. Delta Airlines did it. And you notice, some of most these work. I'm not going to say most of these work, because obviously the market has gone up. It's down a little bit now, but it's gone up since the second. But the key thing is on this day, the first day, and this will happen probably a little under once a month, where I'll get this where almost 50 or more, sometimes close to 100, anywhere from 40 to 100, which is a big percentage of the S&P 500, will all do this little spike down and back up. That's too many for me to go through, honestly, to find an individual thing. That is like a market-wide earthquake that happens, market-wide bullish earthquake. And so that sets up the probability for the market to go up in the near term, next few days. So there's a couple ways to express that. You could just buy a call on SPY, but what I prefer you do, just to kind of account for the uncertainty of the whole thing, is do a SPY put credit spread. And what that means is I will take, and I'll show you when it happens, the next time it happens. I will take, this would have been the second right here. Yep, this bar right here. Actually, give me a second here. Hold on just a second. I don't have my account up right now. I want to kind of show how it plays. We'll play it out when it happens next. I'll show an example of it. The general rules are, I go to look for a puts credit spread. That means I'm going to sell very close to in the money, not in the money, but like 1 or 2 strikes below in the money. Actually, let me just demonstrate it. Let me just demonstrate it real quick. Hang on a second. So forgive me while there we go. Forgive me while I bring up the account. Try not to dox myself. Just a second. Do 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 do. I do 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 do. I do 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 do. I do 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 do. AMD false breakout. We'll take a look. Hopefully Thinkorswim is working. Okay. All right. Did it earlier. So what we can do is, there we go. I'm now feeling, we're good. AMD, false breakout. I don't see a false breakout. Tell me where the false breakout touched you. It could happen because you're coming up for a retest of a high. Is this an all-time high? I bet it is. Yeah. In this market, yes. It's didn't get there. Not a false breakout yet. Nope. Because that high is 267.08. That high is 266.96. It missed it, but keep watching. That's not a false breakout yet. False breakout is if you had it punch above it and then close back inside it. One of the ones that I'm definitely watching for false, that is a false breakout, was at least Eli Lilly, one of my favorite money printing stocks. Also Tesla. And by the way, these are the ones in the account where I would want to take a put, short-term put, to hedge, just because it's a good setup, especially here at all-time highs. That right there is a false breakout. This is like a long-term false breakout from the high back in December of 2024 on Tesla. But yeah, and actually, if I recall correctly, Microsoft, which I was talking about earlier, it didn't do, why am I thinking Microsoft did a false breakout not too long ago? It did not, but it also came up and retested the high before doing this pullback. Oh yeah, it did a false breakout, but it was, again, a good short-term opportunity for a short, but it's a short. But obviously Microsoft is strong. And these are weeklies, by the way. So, and then, again, when I say that I'm not limiting myself to any instrument, there's a great setup that was actually, I talked about this years ago. Yeah, many years ago, back in December 2021, back when, Turkey was having a civil war. On the weekly, did a false breakout to the downside, bought the Turkey ETF. So definitely not going to limit myself to any instruments or things like that, but just going to use the same setups across the board, show how they work. That's the small account idea. All right, so put credit spread. And this is going to be kind of like the only niche thing that I do, other than maybe taking single puts and single calls. If I want to take a small one, risk adjusted. Small $50 to $100 options to play the price movement. So the good thing we can do in Thinkorswim, I'm going to think back, which is a nice little tool that lets us go back and look at options. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to the second. That's when this fired. Now, bear in mind, any option that you would have taken on that date, on the second, would have given you some bullish movement, because it just happened. We're looking in the past. We know what happened, but I just want to show you how I would structure it, because I don't want to take a single call because it might not go up that much. It's just a little short-term bullish move, okay? Or it could just hang around, or maybe come down and then come back up. So I want to leave all that out. I just want to understand, on a day where we have a lot of these spikes, a lot of these bullish spikes, there's some kind of a little reverberation, a little move up that's going to happen. And the best way to do that is with a high probability setup. Now, granted, it's going to be an inverted risk reward of a puts credit spread. And so I'm going to go 14 days out, 2 weeks, and I'm going to basically start with a 680. Now, this is the closing price, but that's about the middle of the day, so that's fine. But yeah, the in the money would have been 682. We're going to take two strikes out of the money, just get a little bit further out there. And I want to try to get this down to like a $1 credit. For those of you that do options, if you're selling, you're trying to collect premium through theta decay. That's the whole idea here. We just want to keep the market up above our level and then make that money off of it. And so that's a little too much. I wanted to keep it about a $3 wide, $3 wide. We can do a 4. I think we'll do it. Let's do it. I want to try to get around $1 credit. Okay. Very simple, very simple. And then, of course, if the risk is, if we have a $3 wide spread, that means that there's 90 or a dollar that's taken off. We can only lose $200 on the downside. So 2 to 1 inverted, not too bad, not too bad. But then as the market goes up, we're not going to really hold it for the whole duration. I'm going to give it some time, and I'm going to take profit at about 50 to 60% of the value of the option. And that would have basically happened, wouldn't have taken the full amount all to the expiration. That would have been by about the 10th, which was basically, well, never mind, the Monday right here on the last time I made a high. So that little bit of action that we got there on the 2nd. And like I said, when this happens little less than once a month that I see one of these, I'll post in the Discord again. These are what I call SPY PCS days. There's a little hack that I like to throw into a portfolio to, give myself a little bit of extra money. Infrequent, but very high probability. All right, so there's that. What's next? Let me make sure we got everybody following. Let's see. Let's go to live stream chat. I did a search. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad they've been really good to you. Volume profile. I call volume profile the cheat code, and it's incredibly useful. That being said, as I'm looking at the S&P this week, I had hitherto not taken a single futures trade. I've been lazy going into this year, but I want to make sure that I have a good one. So I decided this week I'm going to make myself take a future trade. I took 2. One, I was trying to play the upside of this move right here. It's a little late into the trend, but if we go, I like to go down to the lowest possible volume profile level, and that level coming into, let me redo this. I think I was going, where was I pulling that from? It was the last volume profile level possible, essentially. It was 32. There we go. What I like to look for is, of course, these peaks, and the last volume profile level to kind of potentially hold up this trend was about 32, if I recall correctly. It's this little peak right here. That was when price was kind of banding around here on Thursday, yesterday. And I want to drill down, and I'm getting to the point here about what this is. And so I want to get very granular, go down the 5-minute, find the exact price is 30. That's right. And grabbed it on this hold right here. And you notice that over Friday, that's basically the level that it held, right? So that's kind of one of the, that's the last volume profile level. And notice how there's that bigger at 52, this is the broad range volume profile POC, point of control. That's the red line. It's the highest point in the entire range. And then you had that little sub one down there at 69.30, a little smaller one. Price just kind of like bounces between these levels. It can't break out. But that's why it's really powerful for trading, especially on futures, is to bounce between those levels. But now that we start to look at this from a sentiment perspective, let's take out the minor one, and we just look at the broad, what's going on. Price this week could not recapture that level. A little bearish, but we'll see coming into next week. I closed that futures position because it wasn't doing anything. I didn't want to carry it over the weekend. Didn't want Trump to tweet something. But yeah, that was me getting into futures. So 1 for 2 and profitable, because I always take a 3 to 1 to start the year on futures. Not going to do futures in that small account yet, because it's going to require a lot of margin. But when I get up to about 20K, even if I need to put some money into it, I will. The problem is I trade futures in my main account, and well, actually, that'd be a small MES, a micro ES future. I've tried doing futures in multiple accounts, like putting 2 trades on at the same time. Don't ever try to do that. You forget, you either forget to do it in one account or you forget to put a stop in one. It's just a bad idea. I want to keep things focused on accounts and accounts. So yeah, but I am replicating the small account stuff to my main account. So I've literally said what I shouldn't do. Okay, do as I say, not as I do. Keep things simple. Don't complicate your life like I have. Yep. Once the nickels start to get pricey, they'll use iron. Well, it actually already cost, I think I looked this up in some preliminary research. It already cost the US Mint over 11 cents to make a nickel. So they lose tens of millions of dollars a year making nickels. It's more than double the face value for the US Mint to make nickels. That's why they've been trying to get away from, coinage. Definitely trying to get rid of pennies. But nickels are even more unprofitable to make. So not a good thing. Not good. We lose money. That's government for you. All right. So let's talk about Bitcoin. And well, let's first we'll finish on Bitcoin. But as you guys know, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I started posting a thesis about Litecoin. Litecoin is not behaving like I want it to. I've had some people. By the way, don't just follow me into a trade because I say I'm doing it. Only do it because you think it's good or not. The thesis was, after all of these, silver, Monero, which I do still very much like, have been going up. If something was going to explode, I would like it to be Litecoin. And so I like this being a controlled risk trade with lots of upside. In other words, I know that I don't want to hold this position below the October 10th spike. So my risk is capped. And of course, the key level for entry is right there, 70.44, which is the volume profile of the whole shebang. However, this week, well, Sunday's still to come, but it's not, it can flirt. I'm going to let it flirt with this level, just tease it a little bit. I know where my stop is, but I'm going to hang on to it for right now and see if we can get this to be the low for Litecoin. But that's the new position there. What I'm trying to replicate is the success in Monero. Now, replicate it. I'm not. This is what I want to see. I want to see something like Litecoin, where it's just kind of hanging out. Everyone's forgotten about it. And then you get a lot of upside. Again, you know where the downside is. With Monero, when it got delisted by Binance, I've been talking about this since 2023, trying to get people to understand the thesis of private internet money, how it's been replacing Bitcoin as the accepted currency on the dark web. Privacy is a use case in itself. And by the way, a lot of people say, well, I can't get Monero in my country. I can't get it on exchanges. And you're right. Like, you can get poo coin, you can get fart coin, you can get all these things. But why is it that something that you have to go take a little bit of extra effort to get, not telling you how, maybe it'll take a very personal number of things, VPN, to find out how to get into something to get it. Not telling you how to do it, but whatever your laws, you need to follow them in your country. But that should tell you something when something's hard to get and yet it's this much desired. That being said, 500 was a good pullback level. And then, of course, we got the 50% at 449. So we'll see what happens with this. But it's honestly, it's kind of already happened. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. I was actually interested to see if Monero would hit 1,000 before silver hit 100, but silver wins the silver prize for that. Second place. Actually, Monero gets second place. So Monero gets the silver prize for who got to its 10 multiple faster. But yeah, still working as intended. I don't have a price target for it. But those are your pullback levels. I'm just happy to see it reverting to a mean because extreme prices mean people don't want to use it as money, which is why Bitcoin has kind of failed as money. Bitcoin. We talk a little bit about Bitcoin because I think it's interesting to look at sentiment. So I was going through on my drive to make a little uh, Twitter bookmark folder and of some of the sentiment I see. Now, at first glance, I always take social media as AI generated. I think there's a lot. I mean, I think you have to start going and assuming that a lot of this stuff is manufactured. But if something's complex enough, if people have taken enough effort into the post, at least now in the current year, the beginning of 2026, you can maybe assume that a human is behind it. If it's just a simple bull post like, to the moon, or I think this, where we can still kind of tell. Eventually, we won't be able to tell because AI is never going to be worse than it is right now. But eventually, you'll be able to tell. But I wanted to go through some of the Bitcoin sentiment because here's some of the things that I found. What I found interesting is that a couple of weeks ago, or pretty regularly, I talk about the Bitcoin power law, or otherwise known as what I call it the let's see, where's my banana theory. So the banana theory is that Bitcoin, and if you put it on a logarithmic chart, and that's just my cute word for it, by the way, banana theory. If you put this, and actually I got that from Peter Brandt, but yeah, so it's not mine. But if you look at the chart on a logarithmic scale, you'll see that Bitcoin is forming a banana. And the key points of a banana pattern are it both begins and then ends in a converging way. And so that stands to reason and is pretty observable mathematically. People are actually starting to notice and talk about this a lot more, how Bitcoin follows a power law distribution, where power laws are based on logarithmics. And they're doing all kinds of stuff trying to like tie into gold and stocks and stuff, but the trend is still the same. The highs are going higher, but at a decreasing rate, and the lows are going higher, but also at a decreasing rate. The main takeaway from it is the most logical extrapolation is that Bitcoin's volatility is decreasing. That is demonstrable. But when people start talking about 1 million Bitcoin, 10 million Bitcoin, these lofty valuations that they desire, you gotta kind of make sure you don't mix up what they desire with what they think it. But it's not really justifiable. In fact, I could definitely see in the next cycle Bitcoin come up to 250,000, but that's a few years from now. That's of course assuming we're in a bear market. This wasn't just a slow thing, but that's just what the price history over the last several years has shown us. Why would it break out of this? Well, sovereign wealth, pensions, blah, 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 blah. Any number of things. Anything can happen. I'm a will see Chad. But right now, the best thing I can say is that you're going to always have an appreciating Bitcoin to infinity, but at a decreasing rate. And that's the most logical extrapolation from just looking at the price action over the last several years. And people are starting to notice that. But the sentiment, there's a mix of dejection, malaise, but also a lot of bull posting. Like, take this for instance. People talk about where, oh, well, we're seeing how I've drawn these nice trend lines. And Bitcoin is now breaking the trend lines, breaking the model. And what they do is, and rather than say the simple, solution, which is Bitcoin's breaking this model I drew, which means that it's not really valid, they interpolate it to say this is bullish. A lot of people say, like, hey, look, gold and silver, and about all these inflows, next must be Bitcoin. Let's see. Central bank. They're still going with the central bank narrative. Um, See, and then here's some of the FUD. This is the dejection. Like, oh, we're just not getting it. Yeah, crypto is dead. There's a little bit of that, but mostly you'll find a lot of bull posting. At least this is what the algorithm feeds me. There's another power law observation, which again comes up with like higher lows, lower highs. It's converging into a like a parabolic that you know going forward. Um, I like this one right here where, and this could actually be AI generated. Four bullish divergences already printed. January candles about to close as bullish inverted hammer, seeking bullish narrative. So of course these get a lot of engagement. Maybe this one didn't, but um, yeah. So here's another signal. I just find it interesting when people go and find some, and you can we don't even know what this indicator is. In fact, they don't even tell you what this indicator is. This is most likely an AI account. I would say this would be an AI account. This is what I'm talking about with AI accounts. Like you don't even know. They don't even say, is this an RSI? Is this a is this a it's some kind of stochastic indicator? But this is I mean, it's just engagement bait. So you can't really take it. But the point is, the algos are out there making engagement, trying to drum up bullish sentiment. Um, Gold comparisons again. So it's just kind of interesting to take stock of that where things are at. Um, and really, you don't have to. You can just look at price. And the same thing has happened from a couple weeks ago. We're in the middle of the cloud as far as the trend indicator goes. We're not in, we're not out, we're not bearish on the weekly. We become bearish when we basically break out of the cloud when price and momentum come out, and that's around below 80. Otherwise, I'm actually kind of looking for it to try to come up to 103. I still think that is the relief rally. That is the we're back, baby. You need something to get people FOMOing in with leverage before it can get slammed down again. Or you could come up and make a new all-time high. I'm sure they would love that. But things are pretty quiet now, actually, in the human circles that I know. It's just not that exciting, and they're very sour about all these gold and silver boomers who have been in it for holding their metals in their basement for so many years to be outperformed by their hard money. I mean, it's not a fun time for them. All right. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Thanks for joining me if you're joining late or if you're catching it later, if you couldn't. I think let's make sure that I got all okay, WRTG. Make sure I got all the things. Essential utilities. Okay. So this is on the weekly, WTRG. It is holding the 50% of this range, but me personally, I mean, these are good. You can see I was holding this range, but me personally, I like a nice solid trend 50% hit. Like you could have seen here, let's go to the monthly to make it a little bit clearer, where from 2008 until 2020, the COVID low, like a lot of cases, brought it down to retest a perfect 50% retracement. So this is actually bullish. And actually it hit it again here in October 2023. This is a monthly. So I would actually say in the long term, this is bullish. I would not be mad at you holding this yourself. And if maybe you could pick it up at that 50% inside of 50%, 37, that'd be good because it has not violated the really broad 50%. But that's just it's a good example of how powerful that is and why I just want to take things on 50% levels and just see what happens with tight risk controls. Because you can find yourself in a situation like this where it's hit it, held it, and you're staying above it. There's nothing that feels better than having a low cost basis on something. Just seeing green up on that account. You don't need to calculate the percentages. You just know you're not in loss. That frees your mind to just hold on to it and let gains happen. What are my favorite stocks right now? That's a good question. I'm not going to say I don't have favorite stocks, but if we're talking about stocks that have just printed money for me year after year, Well, I mean, those are of course, and let me separate it because there's favorite stocks. These are stocks that I love, hold. They're just straight up money printers for me in a long term portfolio. They just keep going up. Uh, I just keep growing. I don't want to toot my horn too much, but look, all this money printing, you got to own assets, and stocks are assets, and it's just we're in this generational bull cycle. But uh, favorite stocks are things that have worked for a long time, and then positions that I'm looking at. Those are two different things. At the beginning, I talked about for the small account, which is public, just took a new position in Microsoft. So that's my favorite of the week, we'll say, because it pulled back to 50% level. But I've had stocks, boring stocks like Procter and Gamble. This was one that I actually missed this because my alert game was weak. This at the beginning of January. This is I'm so mad at myself because I didn't have an alert set. I had this drawn, but then I went and looked at some positions this week just to catch up. Long-term holdings, Procter and Gamble's, of course, in it. It did a pullback to 137.73, which is the broad volume profile level going back to 2020. It's just a big, beautiful volume profile level, and it just literally kissed it on January the 7th and ripped from it into earnings, pushing it up further. I already have it, but this would have been a great example to have taken more or put it into the small account. Would have loved that, but yeah, you got to set your alerts. Got to set your alerts. So that's a favorite. Kroger didn't quite pull back to its 50%. This is another favorite stock. These are kind of these, by the way, these are the weaker favorite stocks. This is not my favorite. Dollar General has been my favorite since last year. It's doubled since the volume profile hit. Hershey's. I like chocolate. Do you like chocolate? It also hit a major volume profile level January of last year. Tesla is, of course, the favorite. I'm not adding to it because it did a false breakout, but I love my Tesla car. These are Intel. I want to talk about Intel. This I got in back in October 2024, around 21, and I held until now. Big run up, big move down, still holding it. Still not my favorite, though. NVIDIA, it's one of my favorites. I've had this for many years. UNH is a new favorite. This was one took in August of last year. Monero is absolutely my favorite crypto. But some of the ones that I don't really consider trading positions, these are my favorites. That's going to be Costco. This is something I've owned for many years, and didn't give a good pullback there. Didn't pull back to no 50%, but that's just Costco just prints money. They literally print money. I've had this since 2021. I started a position in this because inflation. What are people going to do if they're worried about inflation? Go to Costco, buy stuff in bulk. That was my thesis. That was it. Did it for a friend and been good. Another one of my big favorites. I've owned this for well over 15 years. Waste management. This looks like, if you zoom out, it looks like a cryptocurrency, but I liked it. And this did a great, I did add to this back in November on this 50%. Find in the Discord. One of my, and it's already up this week. See, I don't even know what these things are up. I just know that I have them and I add to them when they hit these levels. I love it because back many years ago when I first got into trading, I loved to talk about it and getting into technical analysis. And people would ask me, so what you're saying is if the price of crap was going up, you would buy it? I was like, I own garbage. And so that was waste management. Look, these are just great companies. Like I said, Eli Lilly, love it. Straight up into the right, money printer, many years. So these latter ones are my favorite stocks. And kind of sleeper you've never heard of, I bet, is Rollins. Rollins. What is this company? This is pest control company. This is Orkin, the pest control company. You're always going to have pest control for your house. And I know them because I used to work with them as a client here in Atlanta when I was doing IT. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I've owned it ever since. So over 15 years, adding to it when I can. But yeah, I would say my favorite stocks are Rollins, Costco, Eli Lilly, Waste Management. Notice how they're not tech stocks. because nothing that's really volatile and gives me stress is going to be my favorite. Companies that just keep going up and to the right year after year, through recessions, through COVIDs, those are my favorites. And these make up a lot of the stuff that I have in long terms, and I don't touch them. Just Warren Buffett, just hold these things. And that's why I said, in the small account challenge, I'm going to be, I'm not going to limit myself, but it's going to be mostly blue chip stuff. I'm not going to do penny stocks. I'm not trying to double it. I'm just building that account out. If I had to start over with $10,000, or if I got more money as it comes in, what would I start buying? I would start buying good companies at good discounted levels and sell a little bit when they get up to take some profit, make the trade free, get some cash back in that account, and then just hold on to as many shares as I can, Warren Buffett style forever. And we're going to build a portfolio. And that's going to be the goal going forward. So hop on Discord. And if you got things like, we found the Microsoft from Discord user, we're going to add to it and we're going to build that thing. So, all right. Crazy list. Why, Lucky Luke? Why is that crazy? Is it crazy because they work? Of course, this is selection bias. I'm obviously only talking about the stuff I love because it's made me money. But is it? Why do you think it's crazy? Yeah, low volatility just goes up. Yes. CNMD. Get your symbols in if you want to look at something. I'm about to go get some dinner. Any news on banking companies, MasterCard? I don't really follow news, honestly. I find that not knowing news is oftentimes more advantageous because if you find out the news, you can talk yourself out of an otherwise good price action trade. In fact, news often brings you down to a good buying level. So ConMed, since it's not at a 50%, it's it's in the realm of something I might be interested in. But let's validate this volume profile level that it's at, which is valid. And then of course the next one would be here and here. So if you really wanted to catch this thing when it was quote unquote dead, kind of like my Dollar General or Hershey's trade, it's at a decent level now. I'm not mad at it. Let's go see if this was a level beforehand. Yes. So if we were to just go back in time, you can see how volume profiles they're not redrawing. You can go back and validate them before the move happens. So this volume profile peak at 39.36 was formed by the price action of 2013 to 2017, this little floor right here. And that is where it came down and beep, hit for COVID, like a lot of COVID lows did, hit their volume profile and or 50% levels, validating them. And then now, once again, you're back down at this level. I'm not mad at it. This is a weekly, daily. You've got earnings next week. I don't take something this close to earnings because earnings are a crapshoot. Do I want to put this in a small account? Well, the volume profile for something like this is going to be when the company is dead. And so while I'm tempted to take it, I would really want something around the lower levels of dead. This is a good level, but if I'm going to be really, really, I want it really cheap. I'm okay missing this because I don't know what it is. It's not a blue chip. It's not in the S&P, or it might be. I'm not sure. But what we're going to do is we're going to, like I said, going to up my alert game. So Melvin Chong, 123, 6. Yep. And we're going to give you credit for that. And we're going to see if it comes down to that. That or 20. It's tempting. It's tempting. And I could structure a trade around this, but I only want winners in my small account challenge. This is a little dicey. We're a little late, but this is 39.56. That's good. If you took it, I wouldn't be mad at you. All right, IFF. International fragrances and flavors. I like flavors. This is going to be a no. I'm going to tell you why. The trend from '08, if we go on the monthly up to here, is pretty obvious. You got to around a 50% level. You, especially here where you held it, you got into a situation of where this thing should have gone. I use that phrase a lot. It should have gone back in 2021. It shouldn't have done this, and now you've got it trying to recover that 50%. You're in what I call the valley of risk. The valley of risk is where you've broken key support, like a 50%, and now you don't know where the low is going to be. And we can find a volume profile level that could be a potential low. It's going to be pretty easy to look at this price action right here. But the first possible level, that's going to be down at 48.93. And if I was going to try to pick up this thing when it was dead, I would do 35.10. So I'm going to send an alert there. Give you credit. And we will see. If it comes there, might be pretty good. If I'm going to take something that's like, has a chart looking like this, again, I'm going back to my quintessential example of Dollar General from last year, because I'm so happy with it, because I loved being able to pick up a failing discount retailer at prices where people thought it was going to die. Just a year before, it was at 260, and now it's down to 70, over a 50% pullback. I love stuff like this. This is what I want to buy. I like my favorite stocks, and I like deep, deep, deep discounts into things that can then become my favorite stocks. Charter Communications. This is an example of something that could be one of my favorites, although it's kind of floundering a little bit. Kind of is sort of like I want to say aesthetic note or esoteric note, but I don't like it when the histogram looks like this, where you have a couple of different things. I mean, you can see where in the prior trend, price did some holding of that volume profile level, validating how useful it can be. Now you come down to the volume profile level here. This is one that I would have taken, but I would now be getting out because this one didn't work. So these, of course, nothing works 100% of the time, and you have to have some rules. And so when you see some price action supporting it here, and then now it punches down below it, this is kind of dangerous. And it's got earnings coming up on Friday. It could recover, but this is where it starts getting into the territory of like, I don't want it. Because now you're not holding that level. You respected it. You came down to it. It definitely knew that volume profile level was there, but it's trying to break it. So not really sure. And by the way, as I said, going into this year in price live streams, is that what we get? Is that what we got? We got to do MasterCard. Going into this year, I'm trying to be pretty cautious. Generally, you want to wait for you get some kind of a pullback on stocks, because 2 to 3 times a year, you get a 5 to 10% pullback on stocks is what I always say. That's statistically what happens. And this pullback that we've had is here. So aside from it's only 3%. So aside from Microsoft, I want this. I want us to have some kind of a big scary thing. And a lot of people think like this is April tariffs from last year. A lot of people think that, that the market went down 3% this week because of Trump tariffs. I mean, come on. Maybe, but that's really just what the news reports. You need a big new scary thing to really get a big pullback in stocks. We already know Trump is crazy. We already know that he's going to do crazy things with tariffs. The market knows this. The market's not going to be shocked like it was last year. But of course, that's the most recent thing to report on because it caused such a shock, people are sensitized to click on media articles about how that's why the market went down. Same thing that I used to read back in 2013, 2014, 2015 about housing, or next 2008, or next financial crisis. We don't hear that anymore because people have forgotten about it. Tariffs are the thing that get people to read the news. It's important to not, it is important to read the news, but it's also important to meta read the news and just understand that whatever they're talking about is just to grab your attention. And it's actually probably not that useful to making um, objective decisions. That's why I like to just look at price action. It takes all that subjectivity out. Let's look at MasterCard. By the way, as far as banking companies goes, even though you didn't say it, another one of my favorite stocks is Truist. Again, you want occasionally you'll see me in stuff like Palantir. You'll see me in stuff in Tesla. You'll see me stuff in Nvidia. That's about as spicy as I get. But I like these things like this is a regional bank. When back, if you recall, banking crisis of 2023. You guys remember that? March of 2023, banks were gonna fail. One of the most obvious buying opportunities in banks that I can remember. I mean, it's just, I looked after about a week, it was pretty clear that the damage was contained and it was just a big FUD thing. Great opportunity to pick things up. Now, do these things move and double? No, not well. Actually, this has doubled from, where I got it in like the high 20s. So yes, over the course of 2 years, it doubles. But more importantly, you're getting a nice dividend every quarter to reinvest and make that position grow even more. These are my favorite things. These are a few of my favorite things. So yeah, you didn't ask that question, but that's another favorite right there, TFC. I need to have a list of. The problem is I can't fit everything in my list, and that's why you don't see every single thing. But as if I pull up the accounts. Best thing is just not look at your stocks once you buy them. Maybe check on them every once in a while. Set alerts. That's the best thing. That's why it just kind of comes to mind as we talk about stuff. MasterCard. Yeah. So there's been some news talk about them, limited capping interest rates. They're not going to cap interest rate at 10%. They know that would just put them out of business. Credit cards can't do that. But if that's what's causing it to go down, it's fine. I would, of course, look at this from the bottom of the trend that began in October 2022. It's a good starting point because that was basically in that little short bear cycle we had. And I'd want to see this pull down to 439. Yeah, we'll set that there. Come take a look at that. Save that. Simple enough. If we do a volume profile, I know that we're going to find a nice little node in here. Yep. The better node is above it than this one. But that one is down below right there. Wouldn't do that. So yeah, but 50%, not trying to overcomplicate it too much. But that region right there, 458, that's what I want to see it come to. Did you have a little mini false breakout up here? What was this high? I wouldn't call this a false breakout. It's not obvious enough. But high 601.77, high 601.62. Nah, didn't really do a false breakout. Just a little double top in that sense right there. By the way, that reminds me. I don't use chart patterns, but Microsoft, if you look at it from this perspective right here, I don't use chart patterns, but this is a double top, obviously. And one of the key, academic lessons of double tops is you have, of course, the neckline, which is, you have top down to the neckline to there. And what that does is that gives you an idea for if you're playing a double top as a short setup. See, I know these things. I just don't trade them. I've studied all the books. I just choose not to use everything because my brain can't hold everything. Yeah, so that neckline right there, 11%. And so what ends up happening is if you go into 11% down to about right there, boom, So 11% from the high to the neckline. That's what you expect in a short setup. Like a double top trader would try to short a breakout here, and that would be their profit target, would be about the same distance from the neckline to the high. Little bit of trading strategy I don't use, but I've studied. And so that's another thing I kind of noticed looking at this, like, oh, wow, it actually followed that very precisely, which helps in my favor if I cared, that was why it stopped where it stopped. We'll see if that holds. So yeah, little thing about that. Let's see. DNB, is that Dave and Buster's? DNB. What were you talking about, DNB? Lucky Luke. You're welcome, Melvin. That's what I like to do. That's what I like to do. Did I cover what you're talking about, Lucky Luke? All right. Luke might have gone away, as I need to. Dell? Dell. Oh, Dell, yes. So Dell's one that we've looked at. Didn't put this in the small account because it started small account just this week. But this is a good candidate at a 50% level and volume profile level. It's getting a little messy, but if you notice, one of the things I did was I drew this up from last week. I don't know if you put this in here or not, Josh. I've seen you before. Yeah. So hang on a second. So there's a lot of, because it's such a choppy chart. You got a lot of volume and price action that happens in here. So you got a couple of different histograms, volume profile peaks in there. And when we did this, it must have been on. I actually did not buy Dell yet. I need to quit. I need to retard max. I need to not think about I'm averse to tech. I bought Microsoft. I just man, I just don't want to get too tech heavy. But you know what? It's okay. I can blame somebody else. We might put this in the small account coming next week. I didn't buy this yet. We did talk about it, but we talked about it probably in the Wednesday live stream I did about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I did a special Wednesday stream, and that's why we have it on the 13th, which is a Tuesday. That's probably why we looked at it. And so I marked that off, and then I marked off the volume profile as like it could maybe come down to here. That's why I have that level. And sure enough, it came down and held that level. This is pretty good. I think the reason I don't like this that much is because it's not particularly obvious, because you're not really in a trend. The trend is not really your friend. It's just a big, long, multi-year consolidation. Not terrible, not horrible, it's not too bad, but it's just it's a 50% inside of a messy trend. That's why I'm not really super excited about it. But it is holding levels, and you know where you're wrong. Essentially, you know you're wrong if you get a close below the January from this week low. Basically, if you get a close below this week's low that held the volume profile level, you're out. And so you know what? Let me not think so much. Let's put that on the list. Yeah. So essentially what I would do, let's see, let's give $50 to it. Now, granted, you can get gaps and stuff like that. So I'd buy seven by seven. Oh yeah, 50 divided by seven. Sorry. Yeah, so $50 risk, or 100 if you want, but 50 divided by 7.3. 7 shares. We give it 7 shares of risk. We could do that. I think we'll do that. I don't particularly like it, but let's do it. That is, you know what? That's what we're going to do. We're going to take user trades in the small account. That way I have somebody to blame. All right. I'm going to manage them. I'm going to make it work. You can try to take all the money out. You can try to take all the losses. I'm going to make it work. All right, guys. Oh, we got some more. All right, last ones. Novo Nordisk. I already have a level set up here at 5202. I did not buy this because I think I caught this late coming into this, but this is good. That is a level that I want to kind of come down the hole. It's a little messy around it, but you do have some reason to be bullishly optimistic. If I were to see a 30-minute spike setup, is a little. I think this is probably a European company, that's why it's so gappy. If I were to find a spike trade, that's how I can make myself feel better about Dell. I can watch Dell like a hawk, as they say, for a bullish spike in this area. I'm gonna watch this like a hawk. All right. So Novo Nordisk, I like it. Atlassian Corporation. Yeah, you're speaking my language. You're giving me some of these things that are like really stressed. Hey, I like it. I like that a lot. I like it. Another one. Okay. All right, team. All right, team. This can be a team play. Just simply at a major volume profile level. I like it. I like it. I like it. What I want to do in this one in particular is I want this thing to give me a pullback. Yeah. Pullback to 123.91. All right. Stay hanging out. Everybody stay safe this weekend. If you're not in the United States, stay safe and warm. And I will be back next Friday, or maybe a midweek stream. We'll see. So take care. Turn wisely. Bye-bye.